Hey, this is Matt Busey, 22-hour student pilot in a Cessna 172. It's a year 2000 Cessna. Nice plane, brand new engine. If you notice, the plane is bouncing around a bit here on the tarmac, and that's because although it started out a relatively calm day, the winds picked up, and I called my instructor to ask him what he thought. Told him what the wind was doing, and he thought I could go for it. So away I went, runway 36, heading out of Lebanon, New Hampshire. We got this new engine, and it's been really performing nicely, very smooth, powerful. It's 160 horsepower. It's not the most powerful you can have in a Cessna, but it's great for training. So I get up in the air, and air is pretty smooth here in Lebanon. I decided to fly on the west side of Mount Gusty for a change. My flights before had gone on the east side, and there's quite a bit of turbulence on the back side of that. The wind was blowing from the west, so I decided to go on the west side to avoid getting into the back side of that. When I got to when I got to Springfield, the wind was blowing 2-9. I looked down at the sock and decided to land on 2-9. Wind was coming right down the runway and gusting a little bit, not too bad. And this is a short field landing, so I'm touching down as soon as I can on the runway. And this one had a little bounce, not too bad, a little bit of drift. And I decided to do another one on 2-9. The windsock was starting to show more continuous wind by the time I came around, and so I decided to stay on 2-9 for a couple more landings. So I'm coming over the threshold about 65 knots and slowing the plane down, and I believe I actually got one wheel on either side of the center line on that landing. So I go up and come around, and now the wind is getting gusty. Amazing how fast it can change. And it's blowing stronger, so I'm having a harder time descending. I slowed the plane down to about 65 knots for this whole descent, so the sink rate would increase. You can see it's creeping up from 500 to 1,000 there as I'm coming down. And as I approach the runway, I start to flare. This one's fun because you can see the shadow and how far the plane is from the runway from the shadow. And that was a pretty good landing, so my confidence level was creeping up slowly. And I went around and decided to try a landing on 2-3. So this is the runway that crosses 2-9. Not perpendicularly, but pretty close. And man, the wind over here was very different, and I'm probably oversteering things here, which is contributing to the bumpiness. But you can see here, right as I come down to the end of the runway, I get blown over to the right side of the runway. And so I'm just working on trying to keep the center line there. I got blown over right there. Trying to keep the center line under the plane and my speed under control. So everything's looking okay. But then I'm not sure what happened here exactly. I think I flared too much, or I got a gust of wind, or both, and suddenly, boom, I got up, my speed dropped, and I descended quickly to the runway. It bounced hard enough that I decided not to try to save it. So I headed back to Lebanon, New Hampshire, hoping the winds would be milder, but they had actually come up. They were about 11 knots, gusting to 22. Very gusty for my level of experience. And I had trained with a instructor a few days earlier in winds like this, so I wasn't particularly uncomfortable, but it was still a challenge for me. And as you'll see, I'm working the controls, trying to keep the plane on the center line. And again, I may be oversteering into here, I'm not really sure. But as I came down, I started getting blown around, and some gusts kicked me over to the side. You see the plane go sideways there, and I decided that was not going to work out. And I probably could have touched down, but it would have been a lot of load on the gears sideways, and decided to not try to save it. Easier to go around than try to save something which I wasn't quite in control of. So here I come for a second attempt. I had enough gas to go around for hours, so wasn't concerned about that. I just wanted to make sure that as I was coming down, everything was really under my control. I came in this time with flaps 20 instead of flaps 30, and a little higher speed so that I'd have a little more control over the flight since the gusts were so strong. And this one turned out much better. I tend to yank on the yoke a little bit when I land, which pulls the nose up. I need to work on making that a little smoother and so it's not so jerky. Probably the same thing with my left and right controls. I'm just getting the hang of it. But so far, so good. And that's it. I was glad to be on the ground again. Thanks for watching.